right, you guys, we are back with more of Jacqueline Woodson's Harbor Me. Now, this is a story of a bunch of kids. There's 6 of them, and they have been assigned in their school. They're in a 5-6 split class, meaning that half of them are like 5th graders and 6th graders. Um, and they have been put into a special classroom together. And they are given an opportunity, and I can't remember. I should have written it down because it was important. But they're given an opportunity at least once a week. I don't know how many times, but they go to a special room. They go to room 501, and they have labeled it because it used to be the art room. They labeled it the ARTT room. So, like the art room again, but a room to talk. And so the deal is these 6 kids go into this room and they can talk about anything that they want. There's no teachers there, no one is listening, and it's just them. The rules are, though, that they have to be kind and respectful. I think there was another rule too. Anyways, we're finding out all sorts of stuff about these kids, right? We're not very far into it, but the characters are starting to develop, which means that we're starting to learn about who they are. We know that there's Esteban. Esteban's dad has been taken. Nobody knows where he is or what's wrong, or they don't know when he's coming home. He's just gone missing. We know that the main character so far, whose voice we're listening to, is a girl named Haley, and she has like glow in the dark red hair, super fiery red. And her dad has been in prison for 8 years. Nobody knows that yet. And her uncle has been taking care of her. It doesn't sound like her mom is in the picture. It sounds like it's just the uncle. So, because we know that because he was asking what you remember of her. And there was, oh my gosh, oh yeah, this poor kid. Like there was the fire, so they lost a bunch of stuff. And then there was a flood and they lost a bunch of stuff. So she doesn't have any pictures. The only picture that's left is the picture that was in her dad's wallet when he got arrested. And so she's kind of feeling bad because she has not reached out yet to Esteban, and she knows about what it's like to not have a dad around. So she's kind of grappling with that. Her best friend is Holly, and Holly is an only child. We know that because both Haley and Holly are only children. And Holly, it seems to me that they even mentioned it, that like everything's unfair to her, right? Like everything is unfair. And so she's grappling with that. We know that there's a kid named Ashton, and I don't remember if Ashton's the kid with the curly hair that's a little longer. We know there's a Chiago. We haven't heard much about him. And then there's another, Amari is the other boy. And the word that they used to describe Amari was like his skin is so dark that it's almost like blue underneath, which I think is a beautiful description of skin color. And yeah, I can't tell if Haley's like crushing on him or not, but he is super empathetic and compassionate, right? He keeps like coming up to Esteban and making sure that Esteban knows that he's okay. He's not alone. And that's the biggest thing. So anyways, teacher, whose name I should remember because like that's the name of the teacher. Anyways, but her, Miss Laverne, maybe something like that. She's given them this room and they're kind of resistant. They're like, what? Why would we do this? What's the catch? Right? They're not really into it yet. And so that's kind of like where we're starting off. All right. Chapter 8. The following Monday, right after dinner, my uncle put a recorder on the table. It was small enough to hold in my hand. It's charged for now, he said, but I can show you how to do it. He looked at me. By the way, what kind of school project is it? I don't really know what it is yet. It's like your stories. How so? I just want to record stuff, I told him. And then I want to see what becomes, you know? I want to be able to listen to it later and figure out what it is, I guess. I turned the recorder around and around in my hands. Thanks for getting this. Can I be excused, since it's your night for dishes? My uncle nodded, then frowned at me. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. I ran up the stairs to my room. The comforter on my bed had a purple unicorn on it. Once I had thought I was going to die if my uncle didn't buy it for me, and now climbing into it, it suddenly seemed silly and childish to me. How had what I liked changed that fast? I clicked the recorder on and held it in my lap. I recorded the sound of my own voice, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, then played it back. My voice sounded babyish and high. I got up, brushed my teeth, and put on my pajamas. Then I climbed into bed and turned the recorder on again. My name is Haley Shondell McGrath. I am 11 years old. My father is in prison. My mother is dead. But don't feel sorry for me. I don't remember her. My uncle says I have her eyes. McGrath is an Irish name. Irish. It's an Irish name. It means son of grace. But this McGrath right here is somebody's daughter. Miss Laverne has put the 6 of us in the art room. We're going to be there every Friday for an hour to talk. Me, Amari, Ashton, Esteban, Holly, and Thiago. Our story starts in Miss Laverne's class in the borough of Brooklyn in the city of New York. But it's a story on top of a story. It's a story that started and ended a whole bunch of times. When we were studying the history of New York, we talked about the Lenape people. They were the real native New Yorkers, but it wasn't called New York then. Their name for it was Lepenghoking. And then the Dutch settlers killed them and took their land. That means wherever we put a single foot, it's land that belonged to the Lenape. It's land they might be buried under. It's land that they have died for. Miss Laverne said that we should always remember this, that even though we have our dreams, the Lenape had dreams too. That even though we're here now, they were here first. I think this is what the world is. Stories on top of stories all the way back to the beginning of time. Miss Laverne asked if we were living in Lenapehoking, would we fight alongside the Lenape or would we try to take the land for ourselves? We all said we'd fight for them. We all said we'd try to help them hold on to their land. Now not on Thanksgiving. So on Indigenous Day, we talked about where we're like our land, right? And our land agreement and how we honor the Chinook and the Multnomah. And like there were so many tribes that lived where we live now. And I am embarrassed that I don't have it memorized, all of them. But there was a nice, beautiful long list of people that we honor living here in Oregon that came before us. And that's the truth of our history, right? We talked about this yesterday, I think it was. Like, how do we want to know history? Do we want to be told stories that are make believe, or do we want to know the truth? And what can we, like, what do we do with the truth? Because the truth isn't always pretty. So it's our responsibility to know, like, what do we do with that information? So I'm curious to see what they do with that information. I also want to know, what would you do? Would you fight alongside the Chinook? Or would you join in taking their land? It's a hard question. I turned off the recorder. When we told Miss Laverne we'd fight with the Lenape, she said, but then maybe you wouldn't be here now, in America. When she asked that question, none of us said anything for a while. We just all looked around at each other. It wouldn't be America. But it would look like us, Holly finally said. It would look like this classroom, I think, because we would figure out how not to just take something, and the Lenape people would probably share with us too. And then we'd all mix together, Thiago said. Before Miss Laverne talked about the Lenape, I hadn't really thought about the people who came here before we did. Indians were just Indians, with big crowns of feathers, hopping around in circles and hitting their hands to their mouths. But after we learned about the Lenape people, I couldn't do that hand thing anymore. I couldn't see the people wearing their feathers at football games on TV and on Halloween and not think, that's not right. That's not the truth. When I told Miss Laverne that, she smiled and said, exactly. Then she smiled even bigger and said, I love this class so much, which made us all feel amazing. I turned the recorder back on. Miss Laverne said, every day we should ask ourselves, if the worst thing in the world happened, would I help protect someone else? Would I let myself be a harbor for someone who needs it? Then she said, I want each of you to say to each other, I will harbor you. I will harbor you. That is insanely powerful. Like, insanely powerful. I want you to stop and think about that. I'm going to reread that. I turned the recorder back on. Miss Laverne said, every day we should ask ourselves, if the worst thing in the world happened, would I protect someone else? Would I let myself be a harbor for someone who needs it? Then she said, I want each of you to say to the other, I will harbor you. I will harbor you. I'm going to put a sticky note in my book right here, because this speaks so much to me and about what we are doing together and about the stuff that we're finding to be powerful and possible. I love that. Okay. Somewhere in the house, my uncle was playing his guitar. Beneath it, I could hear the soft hum of the dishwasher. He strummed the same chords over and over, then moved up the frets and strummed something different. The music trembled through the house. I stared at the wall across from my bed. The only thing on it was a painting of a dark brown girl sitting at a piano. Her back to me, her arms spread across the keys. There was something about the shape of her shoulders that made me think of Esteban. Something both sad and proud at the same time. I pressed the cold metal of the recorder to my cheek and stared at the picture for a long time. One day it too would be gone. The one time we took it down, there was a pale square behind it, as though the sun had tanned the wall around the painting. And that, my uncle said about it, is all she wrote. Put the picture back, I had said to my uncle, turning away from it. Now, please. Calm down, Hales. My uncle gave me a what's the big deal look. It's just a wall. But it was empty, and I didn't want to believe that that was all there was. That when one thing went away, just the pale ghost of it remained. I wanted to believe in the stories on top of stories, always something else, always one more ending. I put the recorder under my pillow. My hands were shaking. I knew Holly wouldn't have a problem with letting me record her. But I didn't know about the boys. One thing I wanted more than anything in the world was to hear what my mother sounded like. Was her voice high like mine? Did she have an accent? A lisp? I would never hear it again. Her voice was dust now. But if others let me, I'd be able to keep a little part of us. I'd be able to keep this story forever. I'm really hoping that she doesn't record them without her permission. Chapter 9. The following Friday, we took our seats in the circle in the art room. Amari took out his sketch pad. Ashton and the other guys started flipping through comic books, and me and Holly talked to each other. It was warm in the classroom. The school had turned the heat on, and the tall radiators beneath the windows made soft, hissing noises. We started peeling off our jackets and uniform sweaters. Even Esteban took off his Yankees jacket. Holly stood up and unbuttoned her school shirt. Underneath it she was wearing a gold t-shirt with the words magic across the front. You still have to wear your uniform, Amari said. No, I don't. Not here. Holly folded her shirt and put it in her backpack, then sat back down again. Amari looked annoyed, like he'd wished he'd thought to wear a different shirt. You're going to get Miss Laverne in trouble. Teachers can't get in trouble, Holly said. They're like the god of school. Nah, the principal is the god. The teachers are the angels, Ashton said. I had a teacher who was more like the devil once, Tiago said. She was so mean. You couldn't even crack a joke. She'd just like yell at you for not even doing anything bad. Miss Laverne never yells, Holly said. We all agreed. But geez, it's hot as the H word in here, Holly said. Amari said the H word. You can say it in here. Who wants to? Holly said. I got smarter words. Anybody can curse. Huh, clever. Before Amari could get mad, I took out the voice recorder. Hey guys, can I ask you something? Speak, Red, Amari said. Holly's mom had cornrowed my hair into a bun on the top of my head. I thought it looked less red when it was in cornrows, but I guess Amari didn't think so. I explained to them about the recorder and played part of what I had recorded the night before. It's like you're trying to remember us, Amari leaned back in his chair. We're right here, though, but I guess like in an hour we won't be. And maybe next week we won't even be in this room again. Like that kid that moved away who used to be in our class. Remember him? Ashton added. He looked at me. We don't have his voice anymore. That dude never talked, Amari said. We never had his voice. If somebody asked me what he sounded like, I would be like, duh. You all remember his voice? The rest of us shook our heads. I remember his curly hair, I said, but that's not something you can listen to. Let me hear how I sound. I turned the recorder on and Amari started trying to rap. Great, now I get to rap. My name is A, yeah, and that's okay, 'cause around the way, it's like what's up with what's up with what's up, A. Esteban looked like he was on the verge of laughing. I played it back, and then all of us were laughing. Amari's voice sounded off, too slow for rapping, but too strange to be anything else. It just needs some music behind it, Amari said. You want me to sing? No, Holly said. Please don't add more hot air to this already hot room. And plus, that's not what Haley is asking us, right? I shrugged. I didn't think anything we said into the recorder was going to be wrong. It was all part of us. I would have liked to hear what Amari sounded like when he sang. It's for stories, Holly said, grabbing the recorder from me, turning it on and speaking into it. It's for us getting remembered when we're not here anymore. It's for you not grabbing stuff out of people's hands, Amari said. Holly handed the recorder back to me and didn't say anything. Sometimes her hands and mouth worked faster than her brain and made her say and do things she didn't really mean to do, like grab stuff and say stuff. Anybody else ever have that? I don't mind, I said to Amari, pressing the stop button, because I didn't. Holly and I had been friends forever, and one thing about friends, they understood you. I like that it's for memory. Esteban crossed his legs. He looked like Buddha sitting there. I held the recorder, it's empty, out to him. Hopefully. You want to try? You just push the button. Then you can tell the world about your dad. You can tell them your whole story. I don't know if I want to do that, Esteban pushed the recorder back at me. My uncle says that when you tell stories, it's like letting out all the scared inside of you, I said. It's like you help stuff make sense. Esteban looked down at the jacket that he had draped over his lap. Then he started touching it, gently, like he was remembering something about it. It makes me too sad, he said. I don't know if my poppy is cold or hot or hungry or scared right now. He took a deep breath. I don't know anything. Nobody in my family does. But what about the stuff you do know, E? Amari asked. If you talked about all the stuff you know, and things you remember from before, Ashton added, would that make it not so bad? Esteban shrugged. ARTT, Amari said. A room to talk. We got you, E. Esteban reached out for the recorder. His nails were bitten so deep that there was a ring of pink skin at the top of his fingers. It looked painful. After a minute, he curled his fingers over the recorder and took it from me. Okay, he said. I I think I do want to talk about him, about my puppy. And we are going to stop there. Oh my gosh, this book is so good, you guys. I can identify with so much of it. So many different parts and so many different characters. Like, I feel them, I know them, I can empathize with them. Um, and I'm curious, are you having that same experience? So if you're actually looking at this and reading this, before you hit submit, I want you to answer me this. I want you to tell me, are you finding a little bit of yourself inside any of this story? Is any of it resonating with you? Does any of it make you feel like, did you get choked up at all on any of that? And if you did, tell me why or what. I want to know. All right, you guys, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.